Hey everyone and welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to learn about React.js, which is a JavaScript based front-end framework, and React is probably the most famous frameworks for front-end right now in the industry. And if you are comfortable with React, you automatically get comfortable with a lot of other frameworks like AngularJS, Vue.js, Next.js and so on. And this video I guess will be a little different than other tutorials in the sense that I won't be covering only the very basics of React, and I also won't be covering advanced things in React. I have been working with React for quite some time now, so I kind of know what things are required to build a decent web app and what things are there which make beginners struggle with that. So I will be covering those concepts which are a little more than very basic React. So if you don't know React yet and want to learn it, then obviously this video is for you. But even if you know very basic of React, then also I would highly suggest you to watch this video once, maybe on 2x or something, just to make sure that you know all those concepts and you don't struggle later on. Cool. So now let's talk a little bit about what are the requirements and what you can expect out of this video. So as far as requirement is concerned, only basic JavaScript knowledge is required because React is essentially a JavaScript framework only, and in order to learn React you need to learn JavaScript. And you can build basic React stuff with basic knowledge of JavaScript, but if you want to get really good at React and build a career on it, you obviously will need much stronger JavaScript fundamentals and concepts. If you want me to make a video on JavaScript as well, do let me know in the comments and I will be happy to make it. Yeah, so that's all for the requirements. Now coming on to what you can learn out of this video. So like I said, I will start with the very basics of React, go a little advanced, to the level that you are at least able to build some web app. And in the process of learning all these concepts, we will build a to-do list app. This to-do list will be a very simple app, a little complex than what is there in the official React documentation because I need to cover all those concepts, right? So that will be a little more complex. And in this video I will also introduce a little bit about routing because that's again a very important things you will need to build any web app out there. And one important thing is calling the server to get some data, which I won't be covering in this video. If you want to build a server and also make requests to it, get some data and so on, do let me know in the comment section again, and I can make video on how to build a server using Express.js, how you can connect your React app to Express.js, a little bit about asynchronous JavaScript because the eBay calls are asynchronous. So that will kind of cover your whole month check. But in this video, to keep it limited, I will only focus on React, not asynchronous JavaScript, not API calls, and obviously not building a server. Okay, so now that we have the requirements and expectations clear, let's discuss a little bit about why React. Now, I don't want to bore you about like all the theory and stuff. You can Google it if you want. Just to give you an idea why we are using React. If you have worked with JavaScript to manipulate things and build websites on it basically, then you probably know how much pain is it to, let's say you want to change some text on a button click. So on the button click, you will have a function which will do document.getElementById by ID or something, then change its inner text and so on. And let's say you want to display a list of different paragraphs. The paragraphs can't be hard coded in the HTML because let's say the paragraphs are coming from backend, let's say they are coming from local storage, let's say they are dependent on some user input. So you want JavaScript to display a list of paragraphs. So what you will need to do is basically again do document.getElementById by ID or something to get the parent element, then add each paragraph as a string in the inner HTML. And simply saying it's a pain. So JavaScript is okay, not okay, actually good if your website is basic and simple because JavaScript is much lighter than React. But as the interactivity on your website increases, it's very difficult as a developer to build apps on JavaScript, and that's why we have React. And that's why nowadays websites are not called websites, they are called web apps. So websites are basically very simple website, simple interaction, use JavaScript. As the complexity increases, it's now web app, so use React. Cool, so now we won't waste a lot of time and let's get straight to the screen. Okay, so I have a terminal open, let me increase the font size. Yeah, Yeah, so one thing, I won't be teaching you how to install React on your system, because I guess you can Google it up and read the documentation and install it. And yeah, one important thing I remember now. So there will be a few things which I won't tell you directly, or I won't tell you a lot about them. And the sole reason for that is I want you to read the documentation and learn how to figure out stuff on your own. I'm creating this video and it's obvious that I want as many views as possible, but at the same time I want you not to depend on any video, including my videos. I mean, it's okay if you are learning your first language, your first tech stack, or whatever that you are learning through a video, but slowly and slowly you should learn how to build stuff by just reading the documentation. You can't depend on videos forever. I mean, in your career, technologies, languages will change a lot, so you need to learn how to read the documentation, how to figure stuff on your own. And right now is a great starting point for that. Cool. So if you haven't installed React yet, then you may pause the video and first of all install React, and then you can continue. Okay, so once you have installed React, you will write something like this: npx create react app, the name of the app, let me just say React tutorial. And if you have watched my previous video, I generally use npm, not yarn, so we have a flag here, use npm, and just press enter. Perfect. So this created a React app for us, and as you can see, it's saying we suggest that you begin by typing cd react tutorial npm start. So let's just do it. Cd react tutorial. And before doing npm start, let's do code dot to open VS Code, and you can use any text editor you want, and also do npm start. So while this is running this, let me show you the code a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So package.json, it installed a couple of dependencies. These testing things you can ignore for now. React DOM, and that's it. So the main thing I want you to focus on is this 18 thing, which says that the version of React we are using right now is React 18. Things change a lot if the first thing in the version changes, because that's a major change, and things might break if you are using some other version, which might be an older version 17, or if you are watching this video sometime in the future, then it can be 19 or 20 or whatever. Okay, so now hopefully let's see what our app is. So we compiled successfully. You can now view this in the browser, localhost 3000. So just open any of these links, and this is localhost 3000, and saying edit src/app.js and save to reload, and learn React. Obviously you can learn React by using this documentation, and I would again highly suggest, and obviously you can't read the documentation fully, but just go through it and see what all things are there, so that you know that these are the things which are available, and just come back to a documentation whenever you need it in the future. Okay, let's go to the code once again. So if you know website development before, you probably know that there are multiple pages with each having its own HTML file, maybe index.html, home.html, contact.html, about.html, and so on. So for every page you have a HTML file corresponding to that to display you that information. But React is basically used to build single page websites. This means that all your web app will be there on a very single page only. Now when I'm saying this might feel useless, that why can't we have more than one pages, but when I say only one page, I only mean that there will be only one single HTML file. So in this case it's index.html. So this is the only HTML file in your whole project that will be served on your URL, which in this case is localhost 3000. all the other things will be handled completely by JavaScript, and on top of that JavaScript, I mean, we are using React, so all other things will be handled by React. We won't be writing any such HTML, I mean direct HTML. Obviously we will need some kind of HTML. So this is index.html. You probably won't need to edit it. You can edit if you want to change a few things like the public logo, the title, and so on, but other than that it does not contain much things. So let's close the head tag, and if you see the body tag, it again does not contain much things. It only has one div tag with the ID of root. So now let's see what this root ID is doing. If you go to src and index.js, so it is taking this root thing, so document.get element by id root. When you get that element, you pass it into a create root app. You pass it into this create root function and store it in root, and root.render blah blah. I mean, this is just, I mean, explaining that this React thing is not some magic out of that. You have an HTML. In that HTML you have a div tag with ID of root, and you run JavaScript first on that, which is index.js. That JavaScript takes that element root and does a few things. So let's say if you change this to let's say root 1 and see again, then obviously it won't come. And yeah, one thing, you don't need to reload the app on any changing, it will automatically reload. So you change it to root 1 and the app broke. So if you open the developer, uncaught error create root, target container is not a DOM element. So just explaining you how things work on a high level. And if you see, then root.render, you can ignore this strict mode, app. Now what is this app? So app in general sense is kind of container of your whole React app. Again, this is just a name and you can change whatever you want. Like you can change this root to hello, hi, tichnas, whatever. I mean, this is just a name. So we won't be changing much in index.js. Rarely there will be a change in react.js. Otherwise, the starting point of your main React app will be this app.js. So let's open this app.js. Yep. Now you will be a little bit confused here because this is both like a JavaScript as well as HTML, and that's what React is about. React is basically writing in JavaScript, but you write a lot of HTML. And if you want, you can search on Google about JSX. So JSX is basically the HTML we write inside the JavaScript. And now let's change the code. And actually, before changing the code, let me also increase the font size. I guess that should be enough. Cool. So this is, and let me actually delete the git folder. It's kind of irritating me. But obviously, if you are doing actual development, I would again highly suggest you to use git. Cool. So if you see, this edit app.js and save to reload is the same thing as here. If you change it to hello to React and save this file, go back, hello to React. This much simple it is to change some things in React. And I mean, let's actually start with our main goal, which is the to-do app. And in the process of building that, I will teach you the concepts required. So I mean, all the code this comes is generally called as boilerplate code with any framework you download. So be it React.js or any other framework, it gives you a boilerplate, and almost always you do not need that. So again, let's just delete this also, delete this logo, we don't need this, delete this logo file as well. App.css, I guess, I mean, we don't need it, so delete it. Actually delete the whole file, do not import it here as well. Index.css, let's keep it as it is. Index.js you won't need to change. Yep. So let's see how our app looks like. Plain nothing, because we have nothing. So as you can see, first of all, yeah. So as you can see, the things that came up on the web page were the things that we were returning from this function, which is known as app. And we are exporting by default this app, which is again imported in this index.js. Cool. So if you like return hi and again see the web page, it will just say hi. Let me zoom a little bit so that you can see this hi. Cool. If you do not return anything, I mean, let's say this function is just doing console.log hi and you do not return it, then again it did console.log hi, but nothing came up on your web page. So whatever the function is returning will be shown on your web page. And again, you can very easily change things in React. So let's say this hi, instead of just hard-coded hi, it's, let's say, a string. So const a equal to hello, and here you want to show the value of a. If you just write a and save, then I mean, as you can guess, it will show this a. So now inside this whole file, which is of JavaScript, we have this much part of HTML, and in this much part of HTML we want some part of it as JavaScript, which is this a. So this a we want as JavaScript so that it takes the value of the variable a, not just the text a. So to put JavaScript in between the HTML, you would use curly braces and then a. Whatever you write inside the curly braces will be treated as JavaScript. Now that can be anything, and for now let's just focus on this. So hello, and again, since this can be anything, I will say, let's say 1 is greater than 0, then a, otherwise oops. So obviously in this case it will print hello, but if I change this to less than, then it will print oops. So this can be any JavaScript you want, does not matter how complex it is. So now we saw that inside the whole JavaScript file we have a part which is an HTML. Inside that HTML we have a part that is JavaScript. And yeah, once again, before you open this curly braces, this is still HTML, so you can write a hello colon. So hello and oops. And now a little complex thing. So this thing inside the curly braces is JavaScript, but now again you can start a HTML thing. So instead of this oops, I can say, let's say h1 oops. By the way, please note that initially I used this single quotes because that was JavaScript, but as soon as you open some HTML tags, then it's no longer JavaScript, it now gets into HTML. And by the way, when I'm saying HTML, obviously this is not the plain HTML, this is JSX. You can again search on the internet JSX. So let's remove this oops, and again it works. So it will print oops in h1 tag. And now let's say we have another variable called b oops, and now you want to print oops and then the value of variable b. So again you might put b here, but right now this is HTML context. I mean the HTML started when as soon as you introduce this h1 tag. So anything in between will be HTML. So it will just print oops b instead of the value of b. So again, how you can introduce JavaScript in between HTML? By using curly braces. So again open a curly braces and do b and oops again. So basically the whole main function will be JavaScript function. It will return an HTML. Inside the HTML, whenever you want to use JavaScript, use curly braces. Inside the JavaScript, as soon as you start any HTML tag, it will start the HTML context. And again, if you want to use JavaScript in that, then again start the curly braces. So like this is ever changing. from JavaScript to HTML, from HTML to JavaScript, and so on. Whatever you require, just use that. Cool. And okay, one thing I showed you, if you don't return anything, it won't say you anything. Let's say you want to return 2 lines. So let's say p hi react. So if you see, then it's showing an error. JSX expressions must have one parent element. So you cannot return more than one HTML tags. And when I'm saying return, then that also means basically it's not about return. It's about whenever you are shifting from the JavaScript thing to the HTML things, then there must be only one root element. So like, let's just comment this for now. Go back to here. So here you use if 1 is less than 0, then A, otherwise this h1 tag. Now I can't put like another h2 tag and say hello. I can't do this because right now you are shifting from JavaScript to HTML. Whenever you are shifting from JavaScript to HTML, you can have only one HTML tag. You cannot have more than one HTML tags. So now again, this feels like a very strong limitation, and if you are comfortable with HTML a little bit, you can guess that we can use div tag for pretty much anything we want to put together. So if React is not allowing us to give more than one HTML elements, then we will use one element which is of div and enclose our 2 elements inside it. So which is hi and now React. Now let's see hi React. Now this does the job, but it's not really a good approach, because whenever you want to return more than one element, you are introducing an unnecessary div tag, and a complex HTML structure is not really good. You should keep your HTML structure as simple as possible for website optimization, SEO optimization, and a lot of other things, like even the size of your website. So instead of doing this, React offers something called as fragment. Go to the inspector and see this. So this is a div tag id root. You remember root id, right? Inside that we have this div which contains hi and React. Now I am going to show you fragment. So import something from React. Simple JavaScript syntax, and what we are going to import, which is fragment. So fragment is basically a placeholder. So when you want to return more than one thing, but also don't want to enclose it inside one parent element, in this case which was div, you enclose it inside fragment. Now what's the use here? So if you now save this and check the web page, in the inspector there is div with id root, and inside that only 2 paragraphs, which is hi and React. The fragment is just a placeholder and it does not come when your final website is rendered. In the final website, it's same as not having any parent element at all. It's just hi React. Fragment is just a placeholder so that we have only one parent element. Cool. Okay, now let's actually remove this and discuss a little bit about states. What is state, why you need it, and so on. So let's say you create a variable here, const num equal to 1. Let's declare it lit so that we can change it, and you return a button increment num, and we also need to show num. So we will need to enclose it in fragment so that we can use multiple elements, and when we enclose it in fragment, we can add another element here. Let's just p num, and we want to show the value of num here, so curly braces and num. Cool, save. And we also need to like add the functionality. So here again, React differs a little bit when compared to normal HTML. In normal HTML you write on click. In React everything is camel case, so on click becomes on click. Cool. And once again, this button thing is React, is HTML. So this is HTML, 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 and now suddenly you want to put a function here. So now this is no longer an HTML, this is JavaScript. So you put it inside curly braces. So I mean, for starting, let's just do console.log. This is arrow functions in JavaScript. Increment now. Good. So button, we have onClick. OnClick is a function, and since function is a JavaScript, we need to enclose it inside curly braces. Let's check our website. Let's open the console. Click on increment num, and it's console.log increment num, and the value of num is 1 because obviously we didn't change it. But now let's change it. So very simple thing, we will simply do num plus plus, and let's run it. Increment num, nothing happening. So what's really, like, what's happening? Why num is not changing? Is the function not running? Is there some other problem? What is the problem? So let's do one thing actually. Let's still console.log so that we know at least that the function is running. Console.log new num and the value of num, and let's delete num plus plus from here and do num plus plus here. So num plus plus console.log new num num, and let's increment num new num 2. Wow, so the value of your variable is 2 but it's still showing 1. So why is this the case? So this happened because React only changes the things when it runs a function again and it returns a different value. If your function, in this case this app, won't run, it won't return the new value, which is this thing whole, so it won't change anything. So initially the value of num was 1, this function returned this whole thing, this whole JSX, and now even though you updated num, the function didn't run. So let's actually see when the function is running. Console.log function running, and let's see. Let's this time actually reload this explicitly so that we know function running. And this is actually printed 2 times because it's in development mode. In production mode there is some optimization, so it will print only once. I mean, but essentially the thing is the function ran once, so it returned num colon 1 and this button, so it was displayed on the web page. Now if you do increment num, it printed this new num thing, but the function running was not printed, which means that the function didn't run again. How can we really make the function run again? I mean, this is not a normal function, like you cannot really call like this. This will be causing issues because you will not call it here, you will need to call it here, and this does not look right. I mean, there are so many issues with doing this, so we can't really do this because it's like kind of infinite recursion thing. So this is not the case. Now how do we manage the running of this function? So first of all, when I say running of the function, the standard name, the technical term for this is rendering, which means that the rendering of this component happened only once. That's why this statement was logged once. I mean, twice in case of development, but I mean, get the idea. So the rendering was done only once. Now to re-render the component, that means that again run the function and like return the thing again, we need to use states. So now what is use state? React offers a lot of specialized functions known as hooks. So hooks are basically functions that start with the term use, USE. So there are multiple hooks, I will tell them eventually. Use effect, use ref, use reducer, use callback, and so on. All of them are hooks, and I mean, I would suggest you to learn about what is the difference between hooks and normal functions. but for now we are just going to use them. So use state actually returns two things in an array. So use state, what it returns is basically a variable which is the value of your state. What is the state? State is simply just a variable that your app stores. Whatever variable your app, in this case I mean whatever variable your component needs, component is basically this function. So all the functions which are returning JSX are called as component in React. So whatever variables that your function or component needs, that can be said as state in simple. I mean, don't literally take it, because I mean that's what I'm using to explain you. And then a set number. It's a general convention to, I mean, name these things as state and set state, where the state thing can be whatever. So name, set name, email, set email, and so on. So first is the value and second is a function which is used to change that value. So now basically you won't do number equal to 1. This is wrong. This is wrong. What you should do is set number 1. Whenever you want to change the value of the number, you won't directly change it by putting equal to 1, equal to abc or whatever. You will need to call this function set number. And useState takes an argument which is an optional argument, which is what is the initial value of this state. That means what is the initial value of this variable number. In our case it should be 1. So now let's print, instead of num, print number, and actually let's keep it num only and have another thing, number and number, and here keep num plus plus as it is and also do set number. And we want to increment the number, so we will do number plus 1. Again, do not change the actual variable. You should never change the first element of the array. So the first element of the array is the value of the state, and you should never change it directly. Always change it using this function. Cool. Let's see if the function re-renders and what happens. Okay, so initially num is 1, number is 1. Let's again reload to like clear everything. Yeah, function any, num1, number 1, increment num. So new num becomes 2. It re-renders because we see the console.log statement, so the function run, but still the num is 1. So why did this happen? So I mean, this is actually the fundamental difference between a state and a normal variable. When the function run, which means that the component re-rendered, it starts running statements from the top. I mean, just like any other JavaScript function, it will like read one statements and execute them. So it did console.log hi, actually remove this kind of irritating. Const a equal to hello, b equal to again, let num equal to 1. Yep, this. So even though the function run again, even though the component re-rendered, in the function itself you have written that set num equal to 1. So here num was 1, here num was 2, and as soon as you do this set number, the component re-render, it again sees this statement let num equal to 1, and it will put num equal to 1 back again. So nothing really changed, and that's where there are special functions hooks. So useState, what it will do is, even though you have written this statement here, it will kind of remember that this was the original value 1, you have changed it to this, and it is basically consistent throughout all the re-renders. Your re-render will not change your state unless you explicitly change it yourself. Cool. So normal variables are not really useful. I mean, these can be useful. For example, let's say you have const multiple 2 equal to number into 2. and here along with the number you also do number into 2. I mean, obviously you can do number into 2 here, but for explaining, multiple 2. Now if you do, and yeah, by the way, the app updated but still the number is 2, because when the app update it re-renders the component, and as I said, states are persistent throughout all the re-renders. State does not change automatically. Unless you explicitly change it, it won't change. So to explicitly reset the state, all the states, you need to reload. When you reload, yeah. Now if you do increment num, this changed as well as this changed. Even though this thing, this 4 is a normal variable. This is 4 is not a state. So why this happened? When the component re-rendered, num was set to 1. Number, since number was a state, so it was persistent. So the value of the number was 2. Now you see the next statement, which is multiple 2 equal to number into 2. Now the number itself is 2. So 2 into 2, 4. So I mean, in general, the concept is, in most of the cases, if you are using normal variables, then those normal variables will be somehow derived from state, so that if the state changes, those normal variables will also change. And since state is persistent, then it kind of will make all the other variables correct. You will probably never, or in very rare cases, have a variable which is completely independent. I mean, this might be a case if you have some constant variables. So instead of hard coding it inside the HTML, you want to keep things modular and have a constant variable and use that variable. But otherwise, normal variables are of no use. Cool. So now let's do one thing. I don't want to delete it. I mean, I might come back here again. So just rename it and create another function app. Collapse this. Cool. So now starting with our to do, we will return main h1 to do's. Let's see, is it coming? Yep. Now we want a list of to do, so we will do. And yeah, by the way, again, if you want to comment here, if you are on VS Code, have not changed your shortcuts, and you press Ctrl and slash, your comment will come like this, because again you start a JavaScript using these curly braces and then put a JavaScript comment here, and you can't really do this thing because now, I mean, the normal forward slash makes the whole line as a comment, so the closing bracket will also be counted as a comment, so you can't really use this. Yeah, so now we need to display a list of to-dos, and I won't be hard coding it, so I will be keeping the to-dos in a state. Set to-dos equal to use state, and initially the list will be empty, so empty array. And let's just print the length of the array for now. So brackets, start the curly braces, which will make it a JavaScript, and to-dos dot length. To-dos 0 as expected, and at the end of it have a button, new to-do, and this button will on click equal to, in curly braces, a function. So either you can give a function directly here, or, which is generally the case in case the function is a little complex, so if your function is only one liner, you can put it here. Otherwise, in general, what we do is const add new to do equal to, so we create a function and add new to do. I mean, let's delete this comment dog, because so on click add new to do. One thing you want to make sure is, I have just given the function here, I have not called it. So this is add new to do as it is. I have not put the parenthesis and called the function. If you do it, then as soon as the component renders, that means the return statement is run, the function will be called, which you do not want. You just need to give the name of the function so that the button will call this function on click. So add new to do will do one thing. So like I said, you cannot change the state directly. So even though this is an array, you cannot push it directly. You need to do set to do's. But you need the previous list of to do's. I mean, you cannot replace the whole list. So what I will do is open square brackets, put dot 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 to do's, and then title to do one. So this is again normal JavaScript syntax. This is the spread operator. It will list all the to-dos. So all the elements in current state to-dos will be put here, and we will then add a new element. So this whole array is the list of all the previous to-dos and our new to-do, which is this one, and we give this whole array as an argument to this set to-dos function and say that change our to-do state to this new list we have given you. Let's save this. So new to do and as you can see, it's changing the length, keep on changing them as soon as you press it. Cool. Now it's time to display it. So to display it, since we do not want to hardcode stuff, we want some kind of logic here, and by logic I mean some kind of JavaScript. So when I say JavaScript, we need to open a curly braces, and now we open a curly brace. Whenever we want to render a list of things, a very common pattern is to use map function in JavaScript. So we will do to-dos dot map. It will take to do. Cool. So map, what it does is basically change each element of the array to something new. So we will take this and return paragraph and to do dot title. So for every to do in the array to do's, we map it to this. So essentially this much of the thing will render whole list of to do's, each to do in a paragraph. So let's save this, try this. To do one, because every time we just edit to do one. But if you notice one thing, in the console we are seeing a warning. Let's increase font size here also. Yeah. So warning, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Check this. Now what is prop? I will explain you a little later, but the thing is, whenever we are rendering a list, React has the power to optimize it. But to optimize it, React needs to know a unique identifier for each element, so that it can map that for this kind of ID thing. For this ID we have this element, for this ID we have this element, for this ID we have this element, so that it can optimize things. If it does not know what is the unique thing in this element, I mean, it needs something to compare that two elements are equal, so that if those are same elements, it won't try to render it again completely. That's kind of the optimization it do. So ideally, when the data is coming from backend, you have a proper server setup. Ideally, there is always an attribute known as ID. So you use ID. But in this case, and in some cases where you don't really pull the data from the backend, you have some basic list of things you want to render, it's okay to use index as that unique identifier. And in the map function, the second thing is index. So we will give this p key equal to I. Save it, and the warning is gone. New to do. It will keep on adding to do's in a list. And now it's a little better if we add to do 1, to do 2, to do 3, and so on. So we will change the title according to what is the length of the current to do's. So let's use template strings here. We will do to do's dot length plus 1 and simplify this. For showing you, I did this return thing. Otherwise, this is very simple. To do comma I, and from to do also I will simply extract the title and p key equal to I title. Yep. Now new to do 1, new to do 3, to do 4, to do 5. Cool. So things are kind of working, but it's a general recommendation to keep things modular. And right now we have only a simple to-do list where to is literally nothing but a normal paragraph. But as our app grows, we can't really keep on adding stuff here in this app component only. So that's where the power of React comes in. It allows us to modularly define different things at different places. So we will do is create a folder in src called as components nts. In the components, let's create a new folder to do list, another folder to do, and in to do list we will create index.js. You can also create a normal file to do list.js, but I personally prefer to create it like this because many a times you will have some things which are only related to this to do list, so you will keep on adding new stuff. So like very standard styles.css, you may have some very specific constants, so constant.css, and I mean so on. So I prefer to start it like this only. Inside the folder you have index.js. So in index.js again we will do function to do list and return. Let's copy from here. Yeah, actually this is this much only. By the way, now to do just for 1 minute, let's declare to do's here so it does not give us an error. But what I want to show you, let's see what's error giving, expected comma. So anyway, I don't know what's this error, but I know why this is coming. So when I said you that we start with JavaScript, then go to HTML, and then you can go to HTML JavaScript again. So right now what is happening is this is JavaScript, you return, and while returning you start this curly braces. Curly braces are only needed when you're shifting from HTML to JavaScript, but this is not shifting, right? This is JavaScript to JavaScript, so you don't need these curly braces. The error is gone. And we also need to export it. Either you can do export default to do list, or like I prefer export default here only. Export default function to do list. Cool, perfect. Now the thing is we want to show this instead. So let's import it. Import from /component/to-do list, and if you have the file name as index.js, you do not need to write it like this. You can simply import directly from this and it will assume that you are importing from index.js unless explicitly shaded. So we will do to-do list, export default function to-do list. Yep. So if you notice one thing, this app is a component and the first letter of this app is uppercase. I created another component to-do list and the first letter of this is also uppercase. I am gonna create another to-do and the first letter of that also will be uppercase only. So this is not by choice, but this is a requirement for React. So React needs a way to distinguish between what is the normal HTML, so paragraph, main, footer, heading tags, span, div, and what are the things that you created on your own. So if I import to-do list from here and I put it like any other HTML tag, so it needs a way to decide whether it is a normal HTML or you are using something you created on your own. So this is your own thing, but if you put it like this, to-do list, see the color change. this is blue, this is green, right? So this is like kind of hint. Any element you write here with the first letter as lowercase will be treated as normal HTML. And if you notice, no HTML tag starts with the uppercase letter, and that's why it kind of made, I mean by it I mean the React made it compulsory to have all your own created components start with an uppercase letter. Cool. So let's delete this, save this. Hopefully the to-do list was not found in component to-do list. So one error came, exporter. Oh, okay, my bad. So since we are exporting by default, we do not need these curly braces. These curly braces are when you use named export, if you know. If you don't care about it. Otherwise, I mean, I would suggest you to read a little bit about named exports. So these are the name export. We use curly braces, and since we are doing a default export, we do not need curly braces. Now let's try. So these errors and warnings are from previous time, I guess. Let's reload to remove them. Do new to do. Okay, why it didn't come? Let's see. My bad. So yeah. So currently we are putting to do's as an empty array, which we obviously don't want. So we need a way for these to do to be accessed by this to do list. So we want to send this variable to do's to a child component. So this app uses to do list. So this to do list is a child component of app. So we want to pass a variable to a child component. And how we can do this is simply by writing to do's equal to do's. And again, it's just like saying, let's say I mean take this example of this button only, delete these lines. Yeah, I mean if you compare these two things, this is the name of the element, this is the name of the tag, to-do list, button. Now this was an attribute on click, this is an attribute to do's. Then the value is a JavaScript, that's why curly braces. So the value is enclosed here and the value is enclosed here. So the name of the attribute in HTML tags is defined, you can't really change, but you can change the name of the attribute for your own components. So I mean, even though I wrote to do's equal to do's here, it's completely fine if you want to do something like hey equal to do's. It's fine. I mean, you just need to have your code work according to that. As long as you are handling this hey thing, it's completely fine. You can use any name you want. And all the attributes you create on your own components, they are known as prop. So PROP props. So this hey in this case is a prop. You might have something active, let's say equal to false or true, whatever. So this active is a prop. So a parent passes data to its child using prop. And how you can accept that props? So whenever a component renders, it has an argument or parameter props. So if you do console.log to do list props, run this, to do is not defined. Yeah. So to do list props is an object which contained hey, which is an empty array, and active as true. If you do new to do, the props will change hey and active equal to true. One more thing, we didn't have any state in this to do list, but it still re-rendered. So every time a component re-renders, the component as well as its child, everything will re-render. So since the state of this app changed, this app component re-rendered, and to-do list was a child of app, so to-do list also re-rendered. So this active equal to true just for showing you, but we don't really need it. So in the to-do list, we want to extract only the value of hey. So it's again a common thing to put it like this, hey, and this is now not really to-dos, but hey, I'm just for showing you. Obviously, to-dos is a much better name. New to-do, new to-do, new to-do, new to-do. Everything working as expected. So now again, just for naming, I will put it back to to-dos and to-dos. Perfect. Now let's put this paragraph thing also in a separate component, because right now it's only a paragraph, but things can get complex. So in this to do, let's create a index.js, export default to do. So it will again get props, and from that props we will take to do out of it and return p to do dot title. Export default function to do, and here instead of returning the p, which is basic HTML tag, we will do and pass a prop to do equal to actually let's not extract title here, so to do yep. Again, even though it's our own component and not an HTML tag, we still need to pass it a key, which in this case is I. If your data is coming from backend, it is highly suggested to use some kind of ID, which is a unique identifier. Basically, make sure that your key is not duplicate, but also try to put key as something that makes sense instead of just the index. And now also I want to show you something, and for that let's put this button also in a separate component. So create another component, new to do. Sorry, I need to create a folder, new to do, and in that folder index.js, export default function, new to do. It for now does not take anything, and simply it will return this button thing. So return button. Cool. Now we need to do add new to do. So basically the job of the button is to change the state of this app thing. Actually, let me not say button, let me say new to do. So the job of new to do is to change the state of its parent component, which is app in this case. So for passing normal variables, you can pass prop as the variable and the child component will get that value. But how can a child component change the value of its parent? So now new to do wants to change the value of the parent state, which is this. So if you normally pass to do's to the new to do, you cannot change the state, because if you remember I said you must not change the state explicitly, rather call this function. So simply stating, it will take a function, and like I said, the name can be anything. So in this case I will actually put it like on add to do equal to add new to do. Cool. So the child component can never change parents things directly. They kind of need a function to change the parent state. Cool. So now actually one more thing right now. So and state and props are just different terms, and a single thing can be both at different times. So this to do's here is state of this app component, but when we pass the to do's here to the to do list, For this component, which is to-do list, these to-dos are not state. These are props. So whatever comes from the parent are called as props. P for parent, P for props. And whatever does not come from parent and you own it kind of, it's your own state. It's not your prop. Prop is what comes from parent. Cool. So new to do, on add to do, add new to do. On add to do. On add to do. On add to do. Save everything. Let's see if things work. New to do, new to do, new to do, new to do. Yep. Things look like they are working so far. Cool. And by the way, if you have any doubts, please let me know in the comments and I will reply to them, because React is not easy, at least in the startings, and it will take you some time to understand and make things work. It's just that you should be willing to give that efforts and time to learn this. Otherwise, React is really beautiful if you give it enough time. So let's clean it up a little bit. To-do list, new to do. Yeah, so now actually a task for you, even though I put it as hardcoded to do 1, to do 2, to do 3, you should actually give an option for the user to edit. So instead of this P thing, you will need to put it as input type equal to text and so on, and you should also change the state accordingly. It should not happen that visibly it's showing me, let's say I want to do something, but in the state variable, that is the to-dos list, I still have to do one stored. Cool. So whenever the user is changing the text on the UI, it should reflect on the state, so that if you have a corresponding backend attached and you send data to it, you won't take the data from the UI, you will take the data from your own state. So whatever is on UI should be always consistent with your state. That's kind of the most common practice I know of in the React. And actually you can read about it called as controlled components and uncontrolled components, and it's very common to use those components. So do this change and use controlled components so that your UI and your state are consistent. I am not gonna do it, like I said, I won't spoon feed you. So let's do one thing. So the use case now is basically as soon as the user adds, let's say 5 to-dos, we want to show him alert. So const show alert equal to, for showing alert, very simple thing I'm going to do is window dot alert too many to-dos. Too many to-dos, good luck. Cool. And now I want to do this as soon as I have 5 to-dos. So you might think that here I can do if to-dos dot length equal to 5, then simply show alert. But this is wrong, because there might be 100 different reasons why your component re-render, and every time the component re-render, if this is the case, then this function show alert will run, which you do not want. There might be some other state changing because of which the component re-render. There might be, the parent of this component re-rendered because of which this component re-rendered. You can't really have a control on why this component re-rendered. You should optimize the re-renders, because each re-render slows down the process, but you can't have your logic dependent on the number of re-renders. So what we have to do is to run this show alert as a side effect of change in to-dos. So whenever there is a change in to-dos, we will detect that change, and when the change happens, we will do something. This show alert thing will be a side effect of the change in to-dos. So only when to-dos change, we will do something. Otherwise, whatever 99 other reasons are there for component re-render, we won't care about that. And to do side effects, we have again a hook. use effect. So let's comment this here and put use effect. So use effect takes two parameters. First is a function and second is a dependency list. I mean, it's suggesting, right? So dependency list in simple terms is basically the list of all the variables which on change will call this function. So any variable in this list, when that will change, this function will be called. And if you do not have this list like this, then the function will be called on every re-render, which again is useless. So you will never have a use case where you want to use this use effect hook without really giving it a dependency array. You might give it an empty dependency array, but you must give it some dependency array. And the use case for an empty dependency array is basically for initializing things. So let's say you want to add a listener on scroll. So you can do window.add event listener. I mean, whatever, scroll and some function. Console.log scroll. So you want to run this function only once. So to run the function only once, you give it an empty dependency array, which means that when the component first renders, then this use effect will run, and since it does not have any variables, it won't run. No variable in the list will change because there is no variable, so the function will not run ever again. So for now we will give it to-dos so that this function will run every time to-dos changes. And to confirm, let's do console.log to-dos changed. So if you reload the page, to-dos change. So first time it will run. So like I said, if you have an empty dependency array, it will still run one time, and the next time will never come because no variable in the dependency array will change, because dependency array itself is empty. So let's change it. So to-dos change, to-dos change, to-dos change. I mean, you can see the count here increasing, right? To-dos change, to-dos change, to-dos change. So every time to-dos change, this will run. So now here we can put this if condition. If to-dos the length, this is show alert. Cool, because now this function will only run if to-dos change. It won't run if there is re-render because of any other reason. Let's try this. And by the way, yeah, so now we have 6 to-dos, so I mean it can't really run, so we will need to reload this. So 1 2 3 4 5, 2 main to-dos, good luck. Okay, yep. Now okay, we can add to-dos. Perfect. So now when I am explaining use effect, there is another important concept attached with use effect which I should show you. So for now, let's comment this thing and window.add event listener, scroll, it's scroll and print s, and scroll to-dos dot length and s. So let me tell you what I want, and then we will see what this code is giving us. Cool. So what I want is, when there is only one to do, on scroll I should see scroll 1 and whatever object this is giving. If there are 2 to-dos, I need to see scroll 2 and again whatever object this is giving, and so on. So whatever I am printing should be consistent with the number of to-dos. So let's see. Reload the page. New to-do, new to-do, new to-do. So we have 3 to-dos. Let's scroll. Okay, scroll won't work. Add a few more to-dos. Yep. Now let's scroll. Oh my god, saw it? So scroll 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. If I do 11, like remove this thing. Now scroll again 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So it kept on adding the event listeners to it multiple times. So every time this function runs, it added the event listener, which I obviously don't want. So I need some way to remove the event listener, and that's exactly what UseRect offers us. So actually, let's create a function on scroll equal to console.log scroll to-dos dot length and s. Okay, s, and add event listener on scroll. Yep. Now we want to remove this before this runs again. So we will do return a function and window dot remove event listener scroll on scroll. So this is basically cleanup. Whatever you do in useEffect, you should always do cleanup in a function which you will return. So please again note that you are not running this function right now, because if you run this function right now, it will do cleanup right now. Instead, you give it this as a function which React will decide when to run. So React will decide when to run your cleanup function and do all the cleanup. So I mean, if you know any object-oriented programming language, in every class there is a constructor, there are some methods, and then there is a destructor. So you can see, I mean, you can relate this thing to a destructor. So like destructor is used to clean up stuff, this is also used to clean up stuff. And a very classic thing is basically of scroll only. I mean, in this case we are using to-dos, but even if you want to do something on scroll which is not related to to-do, what you will do is you will have something like this. Just showing you, you will have an empty dependency array because you only want to add this event listen once. On scroll will do something of sense. So something like if you are near the bottom of the page, it will show you a button, go to top or something like that. And in the return statement, it will remove the event listener. Now if you do not do this, then even if your component is not rendered on the screen, even though your website is not showing that, your event listener is still there. So when you scroll, it will still run that function even though your component is not on the screen. Okay. So in no matter what, you should always do cleanup. Cool. Let me just show you the normal thing, whether it really worked or not, what I wanted. So let's reload this, add a few to-dos so that I can scroll. Yep, so I scroll now and only 10. I mean, this is coming multiple times because even though I scrolled a little, the event listener is called again. Not the event listener, the function which I attached was fired again and again with different values. But if you notice, only the 10 came. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, they didn't come because we removed those event listeners in the cleanup process. Perfect. Okay, so far we have not done any styling. Let me also show you how you can like do a little bit styling. Obviously I won't focus on that part a lot. I will just show you how you can do the styling, and from that you can do whatever styles you want. So first of all, you can use any library you want. There are multiple libraries. One of the famous libraries is Material UI by Google. So just search React MUI, Material UI, the React component library you always wanted. So they have the instructions how you can get started. You can again read their docs. Overview, installation, usage, I mean just read them. And essentially what I want to show is they have some components which you can let's see the full code. React, so they have some components which you can directly import and use them, and they also have their own way of styling. So I mean, won't discuss that much. You can read this documentation. Otherwise, if you don't want to use any library, or even if you're using some library and you want to mix things up, how you can do is Basically, there are again few types of styling. Like in HTML, we have inline style, we have external file styles, and so on. So if you want to do inline styles, you have style attribute equal to. Now this is a little complex. So we want to give this style attribute an object. An object with key as the style name, like color, and value as the style value, like red. Okay, so this style thing should be an object with the keys as style name, like color, and with the value as red. So color, red, font size 10 pixel, and so on. But object is a JavaScript thing, not an HTML thing. So we first need to go into the JavaScript context. So for going into the JavaScript context, we will use one curly braces. Now that we are in the JavaScript context, now we need to give it an object. An object in JavaScript is again defined by a curly braces. So we'll put again curly braces. And now you can do color red. Let's see. I mean, this is a little confusing, but hope you understand why we are using two curly braces here. The first is to go into the JavaScript context, and the second is the actual object. Cool. Yeah, so it turned red. And just like all the attributes, like where I was, yeah. So in HTML we have normal lowercase on click. When it comes to React, it turns into camel case. So similar happens with the style. In HTML you have font dash size for font size. In React you have font size. Let's say 10 pixel, which should be smaller. Yep. So font size. This is one way of styling, which is inline styling. Now you can also give it class names and style. So in HTML you have normal class. In React, as it's suggesting, it's class name, because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, so you can't really use the class keyword. You need to use class name. So class name, let's say heading. So if you actually inspect it, the HTML still got the normal class. In React you wrote class name with again camel case. The HTML got class. And style also, if you see, you wrote font size like this. The HTML got font size like this. Cool. So this is just the React thing. It's not like the HTML is changing. In HTML, classes are still like that. You have a class attribute, you give it a class. In React, you use it as class name because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. That's why React does not allow you to use that. And we want to give it some styling. So multiple ways you can do that. If you see, the very starting of our app is from index.js, and in index.js we import index.css. So even though we have index.css imported only here, it comes to app, and if it comes to app, it will go to all its children. So if you define something here, dot heading, let's say text decoration underline, so it underlined. So if you style this to do, class name equal to do dot to do, let's say color green, so green. So we imported index.css only in index.js, but since this index.js is like the root of everything, it contains the app contains the to-do list contains the to-do. I mean, this all propagates till the very bottom. Cool. And actually it's not only propagating. So if you create here index.css, and let's say you write a class container border 1 pixel solid red. Now let's say you just import it here. Import dot slash index dot css, and in the app.js we have a main main class name container. So if you see, let's actually increase the border size, so from 1 pixel change it to 10 pixels. If you see, the border still came, so it's not like the styles are propagating from the parent to child. Irrespective of where you import the styles, it will come everywhere. So, and you should be highly careful with that. You should be highly careful with how you are naming your class names, so that they don't clash between different components. Because essentially, like I told you in the starting, React is a single page website. React is for development of single page web apps. So all your styles are combined into one single styles. So you might have like 100 separate style sheet, but when it compiles everything, it's only one single HTML file, one single CSS, and one single JavaScript. All this is only for development purpose. At the end of the day, it's just one HTML, one CSS, one JavaScript. That's all. Cool. So regarding hooks, we discussed use state, we discussed use effect. There is another important hook which is use ref, but like I said, I won't tell you everything, but I would suggest you to read use ref, how to use that, what are its use cases and so on. This is another useful hook. And now I want to show you one important thing about use state, which is let's say const warning set warning equal to use state empty string for now, and just below this we do h2 and warning. And actually give this style equal to border 5 pixels solid red. So if you see, we do not really have a warning, but it's still taking up the space, it's still showing the border. So we kind of want to conditionally render this component. That means we want to, if the warning is there, we want to render this much part. If the warning is not there, we do not want to render this. And a common practice in React how to do this is basically, obviously, since you want some condition, you want some logic, you want JavaScript, so start the JavaScript context, which is using curly braces, then warning, and end this, close the JavaScript. Yeah. So if warning is true, then go to this. Otherwise, if warning is false, then this won't do anything. So let's try running it. Yep. So if warning, let's put it like this. So initially warning is empty, so it does not show that warning h2. If warning is something, it will show that, otherwise it won't. But let's say we have const number of warnings set number of warnings is equal to use state 0. Now I mean this is more of a JavaScript thing which I'm going to tell, but anyways, so number of warnings, if you do it like this, then let's see, you seeing the little 0 here, right? So when this is false, it won't go to this, so the warning won't be displayed, but this will still be displayed, the 0 will still come. In the earlier case, basically it's about the truth value of the variable and the false value of the variable. 0 is false, any other number is true. Empty string is false, any other thing is true. So you kind of you should always convert this thing into pure boolean, either pure true or pure false. Not like 0 is false value, any other number is true value. You should always convert it into boolean. because booleans, if a boolean false is there, it won't be shown. So to convert it, it's a very standard practice to put two exclamation marks. So what two exclamation marks do is basically, let me show you. So one is true, you do not one, let's put two, better visibility. You do not do, it becomes false. You do not do, it becomes not of false, which is true. So when you put two exclamation marks before a variable, that changes it to actual boolean type. Otherwise it's integer type, but you are using it as a boolean, so it kind of causes an issue and shows 0. I mean, this is very common thing. You want to optionally render a list, so you check for its length, but if its length is 0, it will come as 0. It's not like it won't show anything, it will show 0. So instead of that, you will do dot dot, sorry, not dot dot, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So if you save it, it will do this. So no 0 is coming. Cool. I mean, you can do this like this only. So to do's dot length, so only if there are to do's, then we will show the to do list. So if 0 coming, so we will do not, and the 0 goes away. So this is kind of very common thing you will require. And yeah, so coming back to what I was going to show you about use state. So let's say the warning actually displays nothing but number of to-dos, and the HTML part does not know it, so it will just print warning, yep. So it won't put warning and then to-dos dot length, because the HTML part does not know it yet. We will change the state itself, so that, I mean, currently it's number of to-dos. I mean, let's delete it anyways causing confusion. So what we will do is return this, remove this. On change of this, we will do set warning. Okay, let's, yep, number of to-dos. Actually, let's do one thing. Let's change this warnings to to-dos, number of to-dos, and instead of this, let's display not conditionally, so we will always display this, which is number of to-dos. I mean, we are showing this here like this, but I want to explain you a concept, that's why this. So number of to-dos, and set number of to-dos, set warning, let's ignore. So whenever there is any change in to-dos, we will do set to-dos, set number of to-dos, plus 1. Let's see what our website is showing. So number of to-dos 1, number of to-dos 2, number of to-dos 3, number of to-dos 4, number of to-dos 5. Perfect. This was expected, but now let's do it a little differently. So instead of directly setting the number of to-dos as this, we will do a set timeout. So set timeout, very simple. It only runs something after some time. So we want to do set number of to-dos plus 1 after, let's say, 5 seconds. Let's keep 2 seconds only for now. It takes in milliseconds, so that's why 2000. Cool. I mean, not much change should happen, because the only thing that should happen is it should be updated after 2 seconds. That's all. Nothing much. So number of to-dos, okay, this is showing 1 because it ran one time, but anyway, let's ignore this. So one click, 1, 2, it changed. Wow. Another click, 1, 2, change again. But now let's do 3 clicks, like simultaneously, kind of. 1, 2, 3. It should change to 6, but only 4. Let's wait 1 second more. Not changing. Yeah. So irrespective of what you do, it won't really change. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It will still change to 5. It won't change to 6. So why is this happening? Is it like this set timeout is not working or what? So let's see whether this is running or not. And like always, console.log is something I use for debugging purpose. Update number of to-dos. We just want to see whether this function is running or not and how many times it's running. So reload console.log. First is automatic. Let's try only one. This number increased. This number 3 is increasing. Zoom. Yeah. This 3. Press again. This becomes 4. But now let's press 3 times. 1, 2, 3. It changed to 4, but this changed to 7. So the function did run 3 more times, but our state still updated by 1 only. And why is this the case? Let's actually print number of to-dos along with this statement. Reload this. Number of to-dos was 0. Press 1 time. Number of to-dos was 1. Press again. Number of to-dos was 2. Press 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Number of to-dos was 3. All the 3 times. So 3 times we pressed, the function did run, but every time the number of to-dos was 3 only. So actually this is more about JavaScript, but people do struggle it when they are using React, so that's why I'm covering it here. So in JavaScript, this is a classical scope problem. So when you do set timeout like this, it creates its own context with all the variables you have supplied. So at the time this set timeout was called, not the function inside set timeout. The set timeout itself was called. It creates its separate context with all the variables. So the number of to-dos which you wanted to increase, when you call the set timeout, the value of number of to-dos TODOS was 3. So when you, not 3, whatever. So when you press the new to-do button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, this set timeout function was called 3 times, but all the times when this set timeout function was called, the number of to-dos was same. They changed later. So there are 3 different set timeouts. All of them started with the same number of to-dos. So when it was time for them to update the number of to-dos, they don't know the latest value. They only know what was stored in their own context. They somehow need to know the latest value, which we are going to do, but right now it's not working. So what we can do is, in the use state itself, there are 2 ways to set a state. So either you can call this function set number of to-dos directly with the value, or you can give it a function set number of to-dos. So the parameter itself will be a function, and that function will take the latest value of the state. So latest number, and whatever you return, that will be updated. A little complex. Let me repeat it again, what was the issue and how we are solving it. When we run set timeout 3 times, 1, 2, 3, no set timeout finish yet. All of 3 are run. All 3 created their own context. 3 different contexts. All the context created their own copy of your number of to-dos. So number of to-dos was same in all the 3 contexts. Now when there was finally the time for set timeout to run the function, which means after 2 seconds, it only sees its own context. So if let's say initially to-do was 2, number of to-dos was 2, it stored 2 in its context, it changed it 2 to 3. Now when the next set timeout completed, it does not know that the previous set timeout changed the 2 to 3. it will still see the value stored in its own context, which is still 2 only. So it will change the 2 to 3. So this is the problem. Now how we are solving is, when we use state hook, so the way to set the state are two. First is basically directly give the value which we want to set in the function called set number of to-dos, and second is give a function, and that function's parameter is the latest value. So basically when you call it like this, the React will run your internal function and give it the latest number. It's not like it's stored in the context. React will give you the latest number, it is guaranteed. And with that latest number, you can do whatever you want. In this case, we are doing only +1. Now, actually, let's see if things are working, because I explained so much, and if things don't work, then they don't really make sense. Yep. So, reload. Let's wait. Yep. First update is done. One click. Number of to-dos 3, another click. Number of to-dos 4, another click. Number of to-dos 5. Now 3 clicks simultaneously. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Cool. So again, hopefully you got the idea of why we are doing this, what we are doing this. If there is any confusion, first of all, give it your own try. Try to play around with things. If you still have any doubts, do let me know in the comments, and I will try my best to answer those, because things, like I said, are a little complex, and it's completely okay if you are struggling, because that's expected, right? You are learning new stuff, you will struggle a little bit. So I guess that's for the states and basic React stuff. That was all. I still need to include the router in it, so that right now if you see only 3000 is there. If you go to 3000/contact, it will still show the same page. There is no way for you to control what page is shown, because like I said, by default React is a single page web app. React is for development of single page web app. So for having different stuff on different URLs, there is something called as React router, which we will be using. But honestly, explaining all this took more time than I thought. So I will have a part 2 of this video, in which I will include the React router in this same thing. I will continue from the exact same. But before starting the part 2, again, I will suggest you to read few things. Let me just write here. These things you should be doing. Use ref, read about it. Hook. Add option for user to update the text in to do. Make it consistent with the state. So the state should also be updated. It's not like only the UI is showing the updated text. And third, try using your own styles, inline plus separate file, as well as material UI, which is MUI. Just Google React MUI. So these 3 things you should be doing. Otherwise there is no sense of just watching the videos, because you won't learn anything unless you try to figure out stuff on your own. For this thing, let me tell you one thing. So I mean, not for the to do, but it's again when you are filling forms or something, it's a common practice. So if you have, let's say, data set data equal to use state, initialize it with username, empty string, email, empty string, password, empty string. I'm just showing just the general practicing, not something which is like hardware that you should doing this way. So let's say you want to update the username, so set data. Again, this is just kind of JavaScript thing, but very commonly used in JavaScript, in React. So showing you D. If you remember, like I told just a few minutes before, I am taking the latest value of the data so that it's always updated. I mean, the React guarantees that it will give it here will be the latest value of your state, and what it will return is, actually let's define a function like this. It will return an object, and I will use a spread operator dot 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 d comma username, and let's say value, whatever the value is. Cool. So I mean, just explaining this spread operator thing, and just to write it more precisely, we do not write return here. We do not have these curly braces, but now the arrow function does not know whether these curly braces are for object or for function, so we include it inside parentheses. Yep, like this. And when you see useref, add option, shell sync is a little separate, but I mean, regarding these two, read about controlled versus uncontrolled input. And when you do this, you will, I mean, when you see useref and controlled, uncontrolled, you will know that whenever there is some change in input, you get a name and a value. So name is nothing but if you do any input type equal to text, name is an attribute which you should ideally give. I mean, even if you don't give, it will still work, but it's a better practice to give name also. So let's say username, and yeah, so if you give this name, things become even more easier for you. Now you do not need to handle the change of username, email and password separately. What you can do is, I mean, you might want to rewatch this part of the video after you read all this. So you will get name and value. So value is, let's say, tichnas, const name equal to username. So these two you will be getting. I am hard coding just for now. Once you understand these things, you implement this add option thing, you will understand what I am talking about. So now, instead of hard coding username here, you can do name. So when your name is username, this will be username colon value. When your name is email, this will be email colon value. When your name is password, this will be password colon value. And just to make sure you understand this correctly, this and this are two separate things. Okay, I mean, this is square brackets name and this is only name. If you do this, it will add a key name to your object. The key name and name will be added to your object. If you do square brackets, it will take the value of the variable name and then that will be used as the key. Cool. I mean, I understand this is kind of out of the context thing, but again, you will understand this once you do this thing. And like I said, I would highly suggest you to do things outside of the video and learn through documentation. Hopefully after some time you won't even need to watch any video on YouTube, like even my videos. So that's what your aim should be. Yep, so I guess in this video I will cover only this much part. Like I said, the React router thing I will cover in the part 2 of the video. And if you are watching till now, I hope you like the video. So do press the like button and share it with your friends. In case you have any doubts, do let me know in the comment section. If you want me to make videos on server creation using Express.js, the linking of React to asynchronous JavaScript API calls and so on, all those things, so that your merge stack is complete, then also do let me know in the comment section, and depending on how many people are watching, what the response are, I may decide to create those videos as well. So that's all. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.